The world this week comes to you from London this time, where there's been an absolutely needless, unnecessary controversy created by a curator who seemed to exceed his limits. I've got some thoughts on that. Australia have annihilated the West Indies. Two very fine cricketers, one today's star, one tomorrow's hero, continue rising up the ratings. And there's a very, very interesting debate on injury replacements. I've got some thoughts on that. Share all that with you. But first, what caught my eye in Hawkeye? Joe Root, who I've got a lot of time for as a cricketer, went up to number 2 in the aggregate. Among the highest run scorers in the game, now only Sachin Tendulkar lies ahead of him. And can you imagine, in the course of one test match, he went past Rahul Dravid, Jacques Kallis. Ricky Ponting was calling it as it happened. It was wonderful to talk to Joe about it, where he talked with great modesty and humility about what it meant to him to go past people he's always looked up to as legends and often played them in matches that he used to play with other kids on the driveway. Where does Joe Root stand now? I think if you'd asked this question around COVID 2020, still a very fine player, but you thought not quite there. 1700s, 4950s, he was not quite getting the same conversion rate. And then he said after COVID, he just took a look at his dismissals, saw what he was doing wrong because he was a far better player than the numbers were suggesting. And look what he's done since then. 2100 1750s. That's what the grades do. When they understand what's working and what's not working, they go zoom, 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 zoom up the ratings like that. And I think given where he is, given the fact that maybe Kane Williamson and Steve Smith are giving us indicators that they may not play too much longer. Virat Kohli's gone. I think by the time Joe Root ends, and we'll do a full analysis of that at some point, he'll probably have distanced himself from the others. And while he's doing that, it's been fascinating watching Shubman Gill. As I record this at the end of the first day's play of the test match, 743 runs. He's gone past the Indian record for the most runs by a captain in a series. Had to be Sunil Gavaskar, 732. But within reach are two numbers. The most an Indian has ever scored, which is 774 in a series by Gavaskar, all the way back in 71, when as a very young kid I'd helped my brother keep cuttings and clippings of that series, and the most ever by a captain, the great Don Bradman, 810. He might have got closer. On a difficult pitch on day one, he was batting on a different plane, and that run out. Why? Maybe we'll talk about that when we know the result next week. And then up in the Caribbean, I'm afraid there was a terrible mismatch. On some very ordinary test match pitches, Australia beat the West Indies 3-0, and then they've completely taken them apart 5-0 in the T20s. There were many fine players. Glenn Maxwell went up to open the batting in Travis Head's absence. He produced some good innings. Josh Inglis, we're going to see a lot more of Josh Inglis. He kept chipping in. Tim David had that fabulous 100. But the one player that caught the eye, he made 200 plus runs. He averaged over 60, struck at over 160. Cameron Green is going to be some T20 player, especially when he gets his bowling back. Watch out for Green at the IPL auction. There you are. That's what caught my eye this week. But I'm going to move on to something a little disturbing on Stumped. I must admit, I was completely stumped by the arrogance of a groundsman here at the Oval. We are talking of the highest echelons of test match cricket, people who've played cricket at this highest level for a very long time. And here's a groundsman sending someone to have a holler at them, saying, "You can't carry your drinks trolley on, you're wheeling it, you're spoiling my ground. I hope you're not wearing spikes." The Indian team were wearing rubber soles and they were carrying those little cans that they have for marking out their run-ups, and then to make it worse, telling them, "Stay away, you can't come within 2.5 meters of my pitch." What other nonsense is that? You can't come within 2.5 meters of my pitch to see what the conditions are going to be like 2 days before a test match. It didn't help the poor groundsman. I'm saying poor because he ended up looking so stupid. That photograph surfaced of him from 2 years earlier, sitting with Brendan McCullum 2 days before a game, bang on the middle of the pitch. Now, let's look at what might have happened there. Teams are very careful not to disturb the surface before they play. At the Oval, the practice pitches are very close to the main surface. And it's happened in the past that there's been the odd infringement, but I think it's the manner in which you tell people. You can't send someone to holler at players. You can't put on this air and say, have this little standoffish attitude, talking down to players. I think Gautam could have tempered his language a little bit. Gautam Gambhir could have, but the problem is in the manner in which things are said. Sometimes here in this country, and I hope the ECB, who do such a fantastic job of conducting cricket, test match grounds in this country, the manner in which test match cricket is conducted is second to none. But I think they have a little problem with the arrogance, the feeling that this is our world and you're just part of it. I had a problem at the start of the season with being told where I could stand and where I could not, and generally people talking down to me about when me and Pujara were going for the pitch reports. I just think they conduct the game so well otherwise that the image of English cricket overseas is taking a bit of a beating because of this slightly superior air that some members have. So it's not for me to tell them what to do. Maybe I might have just done that. Maybe they think that way about Indian cricket too. You know, perceptions are very different when you're on the inside and the outside as well. But little politeness instead of little arrogance goes a long way. I was mighty stumped by the curator, the groundsman's attitude. In this week's editorial, I thought I'd address the issue of injury replacements. We already have concussion replacements, where if a player is deemed to be concussed, then he's pulled out of the game and a like-for-like replacement is brought in. There's a suggestion, and there's some very impressive minds around international cricket who have their view on taking it further to injury replacement. So, and where did all this discussion start? It started with Rishabh Pant breaking his toe and being ruled out of the game. Luckily, the rules now allow a replacement wicketkeeper. Obviously, he cannot bat, but there was a feeling that, look, at this elite level, you can't be playing 10 versus 11. Gautam Gambhir agreed with it on our setup. Michael Vaughan was very, very vocal about it. Ben Stokes rubbished it. So clearly there's many different points of view. My own view is concussion, yes, absolutely certain. Injury replacements, absolutely needed so that we don't have a 10 versus 11. But I don't think we still have any clarity on the extent of injury that demands a complete like-for-like replacement. Because unless you're absolutely clear about what kind of injury merits a replacement, you could have people gaming the system. Already, we've had a couple of instances around the world where the concussion substitute has been a little liberal. You don't want that to happen with an injury replacement. So what do? Do you say, if there's a broken bone and you're ruled out of the game, like it was with Rishabh Pant, that the bowler's pulled his shoulder out and won't be able to bowl again, so you get another shoulder in, that there's a hamstring tear, do you then specify there's got to be a grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, I don't know how that works, and if there's a tear in an MRI, you say, here's the MRI and we get a replacement. I mean, Ben Stokes said, you put me in an MRI and you'll throw me out of the game. There's so much that's wrong with my muscles and my body. You could get a replacement whenever you wanted. So I think it's a thought I think it's an idea whose time has come. But I think we need to be very, very careful to ensure that it's not gamed. I think we need a few months to have a consensus on what exactly merits a serious injury. You could start, as Michael Vaughan says, with a break or a tear, but I think the time has come, but I think we need to be very, very sure so that the system is not gamed. I think it will come, but we need a little bit more clarity on it. So, time for rock and roll. You know how I love this segment. One of the greatest cricketers the game has produced, in the eyes of many in my generation, the greatest the game has produced, Sir Garfield Sobers, who did everything on a cricket ground. He batted, he bowled, he fielded, he took the new ball, he bowled left-arm orthodox, he bowled left-arm Chinaman, batted anywhere, as I said, fielded anywhere, played for Nottinghamshire, played for South Australia, played for West Indies, era of no helmets, no thigh pads, averaged 57 with the bat, and took 235 wickets, one of the greatest of all time. Sir Garfield turned 89, and we wish him long life and good health. It was also a birthday this week for Jimmy Anderson, who turned 43, still wants to play cricket. England have said, Jimmy, take a rest. But he's going to play for Lancashire, where he's bowling well. He's entered into the T20 blast. He just wants to keep playing cricket. And here's someone who had his best years through the late 30s. So, happy birthday to Jimmy Anderson, and a magnificent achievement. Jim Laker took his 19th wicket on the 31st of July. Can you imagine 19 wickets in the game? 9 and 10. And to think he'd taken 10 before against the Australian tourists on the same tour. And what about Tony Locke, who took the 20th? The more he tried, the more difficult he found to pick up another. And Jim Laker just kept spinning them out at the other end. So lots of lovely things happened in the last week of July. So there you are. That's what happened in the world of cricket this week. India's tour to England ends very shortly, so we'll have a review of that and lots more when I come back next week.
So thank you for watching and do subscribe to this channel.